My name is Joyce Stanfield Perry, and I am of Acjachemen and Juaneño and Kumeyaay and Irish English descent. I come from two really strong, prominent families, from the Spanish side as well as the native side. I'm a Rios descendant and a Serrano descendant. The Serrano lineage and the Rios lineage came with the Portola expedition, and they married native women, Juaneño, Kumeyaay, and Acjachemen women. I spent time with my aunties and my grandmother primarily, and they were the ones that were real adamant about making sure I knew who I was. And because my father is an English Irishman, it was a real sense of community then. And just watching it being built has been difficult. Being an Indigenous woman in an urban setting, and dealing with large landowners and having to deal with capitalism, and then being trained traditional, has really challenged. I live in sort of two different worlds sometimes, and that can be very challenging, and it can be actually a bit difficult. And for the longest time, my fair-skinned son Todd would be teased that he doesn't look like an Indian. So what does an Indian look like? Then there's the issue of blood quantum. How much Indian are you? What percentage of Indian? I just refuse to accept that form of identity, primarily because it was manifested by the United States government in the 1800s with the hope that once our blood was diluted, that we would no longer be American Indians or be Indigenous. For the longest time, I had ill will towards the mission system. And I still have ill will towards the mission system. But what I've come to understand is that many of my ancestors did take on Catholicism. Some of them did not. And I must honor everybody's belief system. We're a nation that does not have a reservation. Our community has been scattered somewhat, but nonetheless, we do know who we are, and we do, participate in community activities, and we continue to persist. We have a cultural center in San Juan Capistrano. It's the Blas Aguilar Adobe, and it's in the historic town center, and that's where we have a lot of our social gatherings and our religious gatherings and cultural events. Currently, we're working with the city of San Juan Capistrano on an acre plus open space park on the village of Patudum, where we'll be able to tell our story and and talk about our ancestors. And now our identity is more of just a cultural identity. And I mean that, like, what we practice and what we believe in is more important than all those other identities put together, as far as I'm concerned. I can describe the traditional religious beliefs to some degree, and if anyone's really interested in learning about them, you can read about them in Juaneño, or you can also read about them in Raymond White's dissertation, or William Duncan Strong's dissertation. They were all written in the early 1900s, and then Raymond White's dissertation, I think, was in the 70s. In essence, our connection to the earth and to nature and how it's all interrelated, and how everything has energy, and how those energies, must be honored. Like some of the first people were rocks in one of our creation stories. So when we look at the ocean, or we look at the hills, or we look to them as just important beings as we are as people, and how keeping a balance is essential. So that's the core of our belief system. There are things that I teach my children. There were ways that we would greet Momat, the ocean. I teach my grandchildren that. I teach them to look to the moon and to the sun, and ask, for their strength and guidance. I teach them the importance of community. I teach them the importance of knowing who they are and to be very proud.